as an introduction to this topic, which I can't see being completed in one night. And why it is so foreign to us to even go there, and how that's intimately related to how we have been educated to see this world, and what it would be endorsing is the Sanskrit notion that in the waking dream, all conversation is based on a structure that is peculiar to the human condition, and that is triads. You all know what triads is. It's the fundamental building block of all communication in the human form. So just to explain what that is again, a triad comes from the basic structure of three, and it all relates to duality, where two of the major elements of the triad are subject and object. And the third one is what the relationship is of the subject to the object. In other words, the verb. So you can have boy and you can have ball, but there's no connection between them until you introduce a verb. Kicked. Now it makes sense. It can be bedded down in a human way that is absolutely unique to an adult. Sorry? You can try. Thank you. Some dueling banjos. If we take a look at anything in the known cosmos, in other words, what our senses through instruments have led us to see and believe, it's always coming back to the seer and the seen. And this is the notion of duality. And in that is this verb which the egocentric I claims to be its own. And if we just recap on some of the topics we've been through, when Einstein and Bhagavan categorically said there is no free will, we can't go there often enough. Because the conditioning that we are exposed to is running so hard against us, we cannot accept it and take it in. We have to hear it again and again and again. And the rishis saw this was a native problem to the human condition. And they said, when it comes to seeing, believing, realizing truth, or being conscious of existence, there are these three stages that it needs to go through before the adult mind can bed it down as a known. But what it beds down is peculiar to how it interprets what the senses project. Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasanam are the three stages of transforming conceptual knowledge to existential knowledge, to experience it firsthand. Shravanam is seeds that are thrown whether they come out of a book or a video or an MP4 or a teacher or a fellow student, doesn't matter. But what comes in are seed thoughts, seed words, and what we do with them is what maintains the waking dream and blinds us to cosmic intelligence. So we have seen in the past that what is responsible for this is an aspect of the psyche, which is referred to as the doer, the karta, and it assumes it is the author of its acts. And one could imagine a butterfly claiming authorship and being responsible for its acts, or a little baby. Or is it a seamless flow of movements in a field that is so vast we can't imagine? Sorry, we're just having some interesting little snippets here. We're trying to get everything sorted out. Can you still hear? Okay. And as I think I might have mentioned recently, so many different ways of seeing this. Seeing, quote, unquote. So let's recap on a fundamental of my personal universe, which is different for each one of us. And our personal universe is based on how we perceive the world, how we project it, and it's all related to me. And at the center of my universe is the doer, the karta, who takes ownership of what it does when it's desirable, and maybe doesn't like taking ownership when it's not so desirable. Everything in the manifested universe that I'm aware of is devoid of this problem. It's only the adult mind that has this problem. Everything is absolutely spontaneous, as said by the Buddha in one of our topics. Events happen, things get done, but there's no individual doer thereof. There is no individual doer thereof. There is no individual doer thereof. Which means there's no individual doer thereof. Who can hear that? And if you can hear it, how long would you remember it before you find yourself back in the saddle, calling all the shots, making all the decisions, instead of being quiet and letting the universe come to me? I move towards it. When I move towards it, it is through my thoughts and my fundamental knowledge of triads, because this is all there is in the waking dream. It's you, me, and what you did to me, or what I heard from you, and then stories start. Now, I haven't come across any aspect of nature that's got this problem. And how intelligent is every atom of this universe, tended, cared for, nurtured. We just have to look at one leaf on one tree and wonder how every one of these molecules found its way into that leaf to make that color. And we see it every day. But cancel that. We look at it every day. But seeing is something different. So what is the basis that we're running on is that I am a body that has a soul. I am Namarupa, I am this name and form, and I have a soul. Or it might be the other way around. I am this infinite intelligence crystallized into a word called soul, which happens to be associated with this body-mind-sense complex now. So how is it that we fall into this gross illusion? It comes from our education, where we are trained to just do it. You are the doer. Take responsibility. And if you listen to birds on a branch, you'll find there'll be one teacher and it'll be giving instructions. There is none of that. It all flows seamlessly. So one of the incidents I might have spoken about recently was just seeing one morning the tiniest of little ants on the shower floor, and each one seemingly on a very clear mission. No hesitation, no thought. Or that snail I spoke of the other day, that from meters away knew there was something on the table in a soup bowl which it would enjoy. How? We are so conditioned in triadic thinking, Newtonian thinking, cause and effect thinking, linear thinking, that we miss the mystery. It is so sublime that every single, can you conceive of this? Every molecule cannot be destroyed, cannot be freshly created, can be endlessly recycled. But by what intelligence does it manifest and come into existence? By what infinite intelligence? When you look at any animal, insect, or butterfly, it is so spontaneous in this moment, and it never makes a mistake. It's always perfect every time. And we have the cornerstone of this illusion coming from our education. How we educated through form consciousness and not essence consciousness. So just to remind you of the difference, the pot is always the reminder, a clay pot. So just to summarize again, this is not a pot. Yeah, but my teacher, but, that's not a pot. And equally, that is not a tree, nor is that a flea. All that we're doing is continuously projecting our limited looking ability onto something that is pristine, pure, and in sync with cosmic intelligence. Probably, if one has to try and find a cause for this, apart from how we are educated into form consciousness, it's that the eyes have become our primary means of navigating in this plane, and the eyes are susceptible to forms because they register form. And there's a center in us that's slumbering. As long as I take myself to be this body that happens to have a soul, whereas the other way around, I am the soul currently visiting this plane by the loan of this equipment. And the wonder of everything escapes me as long as I see myself as this form, Namarupa. If I am to break free of this cage and this limitation, I have to take the responsibility of owning up to the infinitude of this intelligence that I am not separate from. If I'm not separate from it, I am it. I am not a concept. I am not this body. But the conditioning runs so deep, I have to keep hearing this again and again. And this is nurturing a seed thought. It's too big to own up to what I truly am. Where is the boundary between this consciousness that I am and that consciousness that you are, or you are? Where is the boundary? Is it more towards me, or is it more towards you? What do we say about the boundary? What is my space and what is your space? It's all triadic thinking. It all has everything to do with distance and difference. And in that, it loses its spontaneity and its essence and its aliveness. Who would I be, or what would I be, if the mind could temporarily be suspended? Because the only limiting factor to this awareness is the mind. It's been trained to perceive this world in a certain way, and it's been trained well for generations to continue to, quote unquote, see this world in a certain way as something separate from me. And it gives me a wonderful playing field to exercise my skills at doing and learning cause and effect. But do I learn from cause and effect? Or do I go into the same triggered state when the same context appears on my horizon? And if it is replaying itself again and again, when can I wake up? What is needed to realize what I am, not who? I'm oriented from birth around the who, which is persona-driven. It's limited to the field of vision and the abilities of this body-mind sense complex. So we then spend an awful amount of time, if not our whole life, exercising this equipment in one form or another to better be able to cope, live, experience, survive in this waking dream. And none of it is actually real. And the pot is a reminder. It's just a metaphor for every other form. You could equally say that is not a chair. that is not a tree. This is what I've been led to through the education that I've received. I'm here, you are there. 2 centers. What about this gap in between? Distance is a perception. And if in a moment there was no judging, projecting, triggered mind, but I was an open field of awareness that is my true nature, how would I see? How would I be? Would there be stories? Would there be pain? Would there be separation? Or is everything one? Amazing intelligence. If somebody appears to have a higher intelligence quotient than somebody else, we're not talking about that kind of mental intelligence that can be measured by IQs. We're talking about the ability to, how could we say that? To realize the truth that everything is being guided and manifested by a power that we have no idea what it is. And whatever it is orchestrating every molecule of every manifested atom simultaneously in the most amazing way. In all of the different ways that lead to the mountaintop of that awareness, the route, R-O-U-T-E, the routes may be different, the scenery might be different, but the end goal that drives us is a deep-seated knowledge that this is not good enough. This is not the truth of my being. And there's something that's pulling me, and I believe it's my free will. But how many intelligences are there governing the cosmos? Is it a whole host, or is it not two, not many? And if so, what is my relationship? The my, belonging to the mind, wants to know its relationship. The whole question of relationship is based on the lie of duality. It's based on a triad. I and you. Martin Buber was a Jewish rabbi, I think, and he wrote a book, Ich und Du, I and Thou. And there's many references to this conundrum that people in the waking dream always confront themselves with, and that is the seer and the seen. The mind has categorized the seer as being different from the seen. This is the nature of all triads. And what is it that's holding everything together? Am I the seer or am I the seen? We've touched on this before. I always assumed, erroneously, through my education, that I am the seer and I am the doer. And it looks very tempting to believe this. But it's also a tremendous burden. The burden of doership. And it's honing an illusion relating to thinking instead of creating the reality, which is the essential. And the closest to come to that is feeling. Feeling is not based on a form. And the way out of this trap is more and more to give myself to the feeling. And in the beginning, it might look as though I am following my feelings, but some discernment is required to see if I'm following my feeling or my wishes and my desires for something. What constitutes feeling? If it's based on a triad, if it's based on a subject-object, if it's based on a relationship, it's insubstantial. It will pass away. It has no substance ultimately, because I am not an object or a subject. I am that undivided, seamless intelligence that we all are, that are in it. Whether it's a fly or a mosquito or a leaf, all dancing to the same tune. A cosmic piper was a kind of reference that Albert Einstein had put onto this ineffable mystery that governs all of us and everything about us. And I have to marvel every morning when I see what these squirrels get up to. Knowing that everything is perfect, and all that's happening is there's a commentary running in my mind relating to a triad, until I just open and soften and feel still and start to get a glimpse again of that realization that whatever is the intelligence behind that silkworm, fly, cow, tree, weed, is the same as the intelligence guiding me. It's not two. And this is a wonderful humbler. And in that humility is the chance of being cracked open to see that I am not an island unto myself. I don't have to be concerned about tomorrow. Because who is the one that's concerned about tomorrow? And we all have this experience. It is that personal sense of doership. Without me, the job can't get done. But Buddha was quite clear about that. Events happen, things get done, but there is no individual doer thereof. The karta is the illusion. The karta. The one who I believe is calling all the shots is the illusion. It might be scary to some, but it can also be hugely liberating. What a freedom there is to know you can drop the burden. But then you've got to get that past the triadic mind. And there you might have a little difficulty. It could be tamasic. Oh, what's the use? Am I irrelevant? And in the waking dream, you can't afford that to land. You've got to feel indispensable in the waking dream. Otherwise, I never get off the starting blocks. I first have to believe in the karta in order to see there is no karta. It was covered indirectly in another talk. To understand fully what A is, I first have to know what not A is. Like for the prodigal son, to truly apprehend what home is, it had to first appreciate and experience not home. And then something can happen. Does it require that to be a prerequisite? Yes, as long as I stay with my thoughts and my thinking. As long as I remain entrenched in doership. It cannot be any other way. And that is what the rishis refer to as the root cause of our suffering. To believe in the doer and not cosmic intelligence that's driving everything. It has nothing to do with the karta. It sounds like a bit of a deflator, but it can only be a deflator to the personal sense of I. Can this universe get along without me? When you put it like that, it's quite obvious. But when you slip back into the karta, all that's forgotten and you're back into triadic country. And then what to do? You'll just follow the same dog trots you've always followed. Following the same triggers, reacting the same way, and there's no newness. And if there's no newness, why am I here? Why am I on this plane? Isn't it to wake up from this dream? Wouldn't that be the most amazing opportunity for this incarnation? If I can wake up from form consciousness, which is not possible as long as I worship the doer. If I can cultivate more and more of seeing this ineffable mystery in nature, it starts to rub off. But that means when I go to the forest or to the beach, I'm not getting sidetracked by all the specifics that the mind wants to follow. But I just go quiet and I withdraw my foreground awareness into background consciousness and just be quiet. And if in that way of being the karta disappears, you will know it immediately by how nature responds to you and how it responds to you. It suddenly loses its fear of you. Just being aware, being open, being quiet, without any objective, is safe if it doesn't call upon the triads that govern our lives. Will I always default to triadic thinking? Yes. The mind is geared, conditioned in the waking dream. It has no choice. Karta rules. And all it wants is to survive in the most optimum way. Often, even at the expense of the rest of the universe. So to come back, where is the boundary of awareness or life? Between the fly on my knee and me. All I'm able to do is to think about it, but it won't be a reality as long as the mind is looking at it and not seeing it. As long as it is still relying on a form and a story. Who or what would that fly be to me if the boundary disappeared and all there was this one infinite intelligence governing both of us equally? And that cosmic intelligence, as you can imagine, has no favorites, has no stories, is benign, is most gracious, in my words. And can we surrender to it? Can I surrender to it? It's easy when I'm fairly undistracted, especially if I have found closure pertaining to some part of my life just before the moment in question. Because if there has been closure of a cycle of action before this moment I'm referring to, then where's my awareness if there has been closure? Have all the chickens come home to roost, or are they all scattered all over the country? Well, you know what the feeling is like. All of your awareness returns when there is closure. Now that's quite an amazing gift that we've been given. That if we know how to honor what the universe has put in front of me, if I know what the universe has put in front of me is for me and me alone, and there was no question, I would just move towards it and, without any thinking, be there. And if I were to be there in that frame of mind, a surrendered awareness to this greater mystery, in that moment there is no karta. And if there is no karta, no karma accrues during that phase of mindfulness. So in that mind-free space, it is karma-free. Nothing is binding. Everything is liberating and connected. And this is the most amazing thing, I am the center of that whole universe. Mind can't go there. There can be the premonition of that in a moment of spaciousness and mindfulness, where I am completely not separate from anything. But the problem is, I won't be able to remember that, because this can only happen when there is no mind. It's the intuition and the experience of it can be very, very liberating. Take no heed for the morrow, for sufficient unto the day is the evil thereof. Was what one teacher was trying to say. Look at the lilies. They spin not, neither do they weave. But Solomon in all his glory was never arrayed like one of these. What can a man do? What can a woman do? We can only do things based on what we know, which is a triadic culture. And that is the byproduct of our education system, which starts at home, in form consciousness. What is the way, if there is a way, to undo this, to resolve it? Because if it's not resolved, at the end of this passage of play, we all know what a return ticket looks like. And if you feel you really would love to come back here, then there's no problem. Just do what you want to do. It's just too much to apprehend. It's too big a step from my education to acceptance of the fact that I am the center of this cosmos. There is no other. There is no other that is separate from me. That's only what my head is telling me, my thinking. It's too much to own up to. I am that center. And what is it that Bhagavan was trying to tell us? What was Christ trying to tell us? What were all these masters trying to tell us? Wake us up. You are not what you take yourself to be. But I've been wedded to Namarupa, this name, this form, until death us do part. But if I haven't separated from Namarupa, then I've not separated from Namarupa. And what have I done with this amazing possibility that exists? If I redirect my gaze from externalities and external specifics and come home to what is really important, is how comfortable I am in the whole, as the whole. So it's not anything that can be swallowed. It takes time to digest the enormity of this. But Shravanam is hearing the truth of my being, even if I don't believe it. But at least if I can start to see that everything is magnificently orchestrated, down to the last molecule in every leaf, worm, fly, sky, cloud, tree, thought, cake, coffee, everything. It's just too much. Because it also means that I am all that. Now the mind can get ludicrous. How can I be that coffee bag? That's mind talk. If there was no mind, that question wouldn't arise, nor would any notion of separation arise. And in that space, I lose myself in order to find myself. I lose my personal self in order to find the whole. And then, having found it, I have attained realization, the real I-zation, that I am. And it's just, as I've said before, so foreign to my conditioning. It's perceived, as usual, as blasphemous, which was why Christ was stoned, persecuted. He had the courage to say, I am that, knowing what it would cost. But he was one of the way showers, like Buddha and other great teachers. I am not this Namarupa. My true nature is Swarupa, this essential nature. And then all of these pots are on the same page because there's no pots anymore. It's only clay. And in that sense, cosmic intelligence, it's not like we all have access to that. We are that. As Bhagavan said, the center is all there is. Outside of that, nothing exists. It's all a projection. What does he mean by projection? Is something that comes and goes. Something that is time-bound will come and it will go. And this has been my conditioning. It's gone deep. And this is my insecurity. Because there is this belief that whatever comes, I have to hold on to it. I have to. And the impulse to hang on to it is the very thing that's going to cause that to be lost, paradoxically. If there's a fear and a holding, it means you've left the native trust and the native awareness that is the cosmic mystery. I am. Not I can do or will do. Not I can plan. All triadic thinking. Cosmic thinking is a misnomer. There's no such thing as cosmic thinking. They're mutually exclusive. So to think about the cosmos. Okay, can be some interesting phenomena you might experience, but I won't have a clue what it is until my mind has ceased to move, even if it's just for a few moments. And that is that first touch of mindfulness. In that sense, and in that moment, when all boundaries, I can't say disappeared, it just no notion of boundaries. How would my empathy be towards whatever is in my field of vision while I am maintaining that awareness that there is no separation? I am that fly. True or false? Well, it depends what you're consulting, your head or your heart. Seeing as we're conditioned to consult the head, it's obviously a nonsense. And we all know that. We're adults. Yes, that's the problem. Am I my brother's keeper? Am I that fly? Mind talk is the problem. If I had to go quiet, really quiet, and just feel into that fly and look at the amazing assembly that took place. Who assembled it into such perfection? Who taught it how to fly? When I look at these seagulls and the aerobatics they perform, I wonder who taught them that? It just comes by being in the flow of this cosmic intelligence. It flows through me. If I claim the doership of that flow, the trouble starts. If I can surrender to this all-intelligence, I'm free. And I can put down the burden. And there's no guilt, and there's no shame. All of that comes from stories, and all of those come from mind. Who would I be if I was delightfully freed of my mind? Like that little child, like the fly, like the grasshopper, like the sky. Who or what is governing this incredible mystery where everything is absolutely perfect? And just strangely enough, every single molecule is cared for. And every molecule knows what to do. Take a nitrogen molecule in the ground, finding its way through the roots, on a mission to get to leaf number 43 on the third branch. Who's orchestrating that? Is Mother Tree doing it all? We don't ponder what this incredible intelligence is that governs every molecule that came from it. And in that realization is an opening and a softening and a surrender. You don't have to surrender. It happens when you let the mystery come in. When I start to see the clay and not the pot, it's the start of a surrender to something that's far greater than what I took myself to be. I am everything. Now, who can claim that? Nobody. Because the one who's claiming it is the problem. It's the mind. That little child. It's living like every other molecule, spontaneous. It's amazing. So if there's anything anybody would like to say, you can please say. And when this glimpse is intuited and the vastness of this mystery is beginning to be a little bit more than a belief, then I find myself naturally being drawn and gravitating towards circumstances that will augment this, make it bigger. Automatically, I'm drawn to that. Who is drawing who? Advaita means not to. Advaita means I am the whole. But the mind can't say that. That's the problem. And the waking dream is called a dream because it's running on mind. It's running on triads. It's running on beliefs. And in the process is losing itself, not finding itself. And it can be very comfortable living amongst the known. But if I become too attached to the known, I mean as the mind uses that word known, then there's stagnation. I cannot accept anything different than what I have believed up until now. It served me well up until now. Thank you very much. Okay? We'll see you next round. What is it that I have to be able to clearly see and to be free with? That the karta is the problem. But in the way of and, it's also the solution. But talking about now, the role of solution has expired. It's now become the problem. So there is a place for the karta because it is the karta that governs all the laws of the waking dream. We've all got to make sure we're all on the same page, doing the same things, obeying the same laws, wada, wada, wada. And all of that is form consciousness. It's not freedom. The rishis could see this was a seemingly insurmountable hill to climb. Which was a significant aspect of Merdad, believing that he was going to do something. And then along the road, one gets glimpses that there's nothing that's not orchestrated by an intelligence that's far greater and completely inaccessible to the mind. And if I can be okay with that, it's hugely liberating. So that when I'm confronted with something that rises up in me through being triggered, if I have the presence of mind, it's a stepping stone, to see it's just another story. And can I drop it? So you can practice. When something's gotten up your nose and you catch it in time, thank you, but no thank you. I am not that. I'm not buying into that. But that needs practice. I can't do it on Monday and think it's going to be fine on Tuesday. So there is the living with the knowledge that I am, and there is only one I am. The mind will be super confused because it sees several eyes. And how many eyes are in this room? I don't mean these eyes. How many eyes are in this room? Well, if we put our answers on a piece of paper, it'd be, unless you were exposed to this, there would all be a unanimous answer. But the answer would be wrong because it came from the waking dream. And that's all realization is to realize that I am not that. I am that true I. And the threefold obstacle to that realization is addressed in all teachings in ancient India. At the start of a talk, going all the way back, there would be 3 shantis. Shanti, shanti, shanti. The first shanti is, may there be no disturbances or distractions from me in this meeting. The second shanti is, may there be no interruptions or distractions by others while I am in this holy space. And the third shanti is, may there be no interference from God, as in a calamity or a natural disaster. So what we sang in the olden days at the end, Shanti, 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 Hariki Om, Tat Sat Aham, Om, Tat Sat Aham. That truth I am. Or in a Mahavakya, a major sentence from Sanskrit, that thou art. In other words, when somebody has had a moment of mindfulness and has seen the enormity of what one is, immediately the mind comes back. What will come back with the mind is the doubter. I was imagining it. And for that reason, it was, in those days, the Guru's job to say, you are that you have just realized. It's not an imagination. Because the all too common phenomena is to go into doubt. It's too big from what I've been trained and conditioned to accept, unfortunately. Too big, too much, too quick. And that is the enormity of what that avatar came to show, that you are the whole. You and the Father are not separate. You are not two. You are the cause. You are the whole, but not the who you have identified with your mind. And the sooner we realize that there is only one problem in this universe, what would that problem be? It's what we've taken to be the most important thing in our lives. Turns out to be the biggest obstacle. It's a blessing because it helps me navigate the waking dream. But it's a curse when I try and find my way home. Okay, well, I think if there's anything anybody would like to say, otherwise we can leave it at that. This work. This thing. You see, the mind can't go there. The mind can't go there. If I say, this microphone I am, who can hear you? I have to be on drugs or spaced out to start talking like that. And maybe this is why. All these artificial things to bring us on a different plane of awareness so that I can get a glimpse of what I'm not. But the problem is you're left with memories of that altered state, and then you start hankering after that memory. So how do you win? You shut up. You just be quiet. And just feel. And this is one of the greatest gifts about being born blind. You are not tempted by form. You have to rely on your radar, on your sense of feeling and awareness. And why they are much more able to be with you in a different way if they're not influenced by your form, your name, and your person. Wish you a pleasant evening.